Biography of Sheikh Al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah. Was he suffering from the ruling political system? His qualities and morals since the emergence of the Islamic message and its spread in the world. Part 3. We continue to narrate a stage in the life of Sheikh Al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah. Though he spent much of his life following this school, he renounced blind following near the end of his life. His work was most influenced by the sayings and actions of the first 3 generations of Muslims, Salaf, which is displayed in his works where he would give preference to their opinions over those of his contemporaries. The modern Salafi movement derives its name from these generations. Ibn Taymiyyah's own relationship, as a religious scholar, with the ruling apparatus was not always amicable. It ranged from silence to open rebellion. On occasions when he shared the same views and aims as the ruling authorities, his contributions were welcomed, but when Ibn Taymiyyah went against the status quo, he was seen as uncooperative, and on occasions spent much time in prison. Ibn Taymiyyah's attitude towards his own rulers was based on the actions of Muhammad's companions when they made an oath of allegiance to him as follows: to obey within obedience to God, even if the one giving the order is unjust, to abstain from disputing the authority of those who exert it, and to speak out the truth, or take up its cause without fear in respect of God, of blame from anyone. Ibn Taymiyyah was a religious scholar as well as an Islamic political activist. In his efforts he was persecuted and imprisoned on 6 occasions, with the total time spent inside prison coming to over 6 years. Other sources say that he spent over 12 years in prison. His detentions were due to the pushback from the clerical establishment of the Mamluk Sultanate, who opposed certain elements of his creed and his views on some jurisprudential issues. However, according to Yahya Misho, the real reasons were more trivial. Misho stated 5 reasons as to why Ibn Taymiyyah was imprisoned by the Mamluk government, they being: not complying with the doctrines and practices prevalent among powerful religious and Sufi establishments, an overly outspoken personality, the jealousy of his peers, the risk to public order due to this popular appeal and political intrigues. Baber Johansson stated that the reasons for Ibn Taymiyyah's incarcerations were, as a result of his conflicts with Muslim mystics, jurists, and theologians, who were able to persuade the political authorities of the necessity to limit Ibn Taymiyyah's range of action through political censorship and incarceration. Ibn Taymiyyah's emergence in the public and political spheres began in 1293 when he was 30 years old, when the authorities asked him to issue a fatwa, legal verdict, on Asif al-Nasrani, a Christian cleric who was accused of insulting Muhammad. He accepted the invitation and delivered his fatwa, calling for the man to receive the death penalty. Despite the fact that public opinion was very much on Ibn Taymiyyah's side, the governor of Syria attempted to resolve the situation by asking Asif to accept Islam in return for his life, to which he agreed. This resolution was not acceptable to Ibn Taymiyyah, who then, together with his followers, protested against it outside the governor's palace, demanding that Asif be put to death, on the grounds that any person, Muslim or non-Muslim, who insults Muhammad must be killed. His unwillingness to compromise, coupled with his attempt to protest against the governor's actions, resulted in him being punished with a prison sentence, the first of many such imprisonments which were to come. The French Orientalist Henri Laust says that during his incarceration, Ibn Taymiyyah wrote his first great work, Al-Sarim al-Maslul ala Shatim al-Rasul, the drawn sword against those who insult the messenger. Ibn Taymiyyah, together with the help of his disciples, continued with his efforts against what he perceived to be un-Islamic practices, and to implement what he saw as his religious duty of commanding good and forbidding wrong. Yahya Misho says that some of these incidences included shaving children's heads, leading an anti-debauchery campaign in brothels and taverns, hitting an atheist before his public execution, destroying what was thought to be a sacred rock in a mosque, attacking astrologers and obliging deviant Sufi sheikhs to make public acts of contrition and adhere to the Sunnah. Ibn Taymiyyah and his disciples used to condemn wine cellars, and they would attack wine shops in Damascus by breaking wine bottles and pouring them onto the floor. Ibn Taymiyyah and his disciples used to condemn wine cellars, and they would attack wine shops in Damascus by breaking wine bottles and pouring them onto the floor. A few years later, in 1296, he took over the position of one of his teachers, Zayn al-Din ibn al-Munajjal, taking the post of professor of Hanbali jurisprudence at the Hanbaliya Madrasa, the oldest such institution of this tradition in Damascus. This is seen by some to be the peak of his scholarly career. The year when he began his post at the Hanbaliya Madrasa was a time of political turmoil. A few years later, in 1296, he took over the position of one of his teachers, Zayn al-Din ibn al-Munajjal, taking the post of professor of Hanbali jurisprudence at the Hanbaliya Madrasa, the oldest such institution of this tradition in Damascus. This is seen by some to be the peak of his scholarly career. The year when he began his post at the Hanbaliya Madrasa was a time of political turmoil. The Mamluk Sultan al-Adil Kitbuga was deposed by his vice-sultan al-Malik al-Mansur Lajan, who then ruled from 1297 to 1299. Lajan desired to commission an expedition against the Christians of the Armenian Kingdom of Cilicia, who formed an alliance with the Mongol Empire and participated in the military campaign which led to the destruction of Baghdad, the capital of the Abbasid Caliphate, and the destruction of Haran, the birthplace of Ibn Taymiyyah. For that purpose, he urged Ibn Taymiyyah to call the Muslims to jihad. In 1298, Ibn Taymiyyah wrote his explanation for the Ayat al-Mutashabiyat, the unclear verses of the Quran, titled Al-Aqadat al-Hamawat al-Kubra, the Creed of the Great People of Hama. The book is about divine attributes, and it served as an answer to a question from the city of Hama, Syria. At that particular time, Ash'arites held prominent positions within the Islamic scholarly community in both Syria and Egypt, and they held a certain position on the divine attributes of God. Ibn Taymiyyah in his book strongly disagreed with their views, and this heavy opposition to the common Ash'ari position caused considerable controversy. Once more, Ibn Taymiyyah collaborated with the Mamluks in 1300, when he joined the punitive expedition against the Alawites and Shiites in the Kasrawan region of the Lebanese mountains. Ibn Taymiyyah believed that the Alawites were more heretical than Jews and Christians, and according to Karel Hillenbrand, the confrontation with the Alawites occurred because they were accused of collaborating with Christians and Mongols. Ibn Taymiyyah had further active involvements in campaigns against the Mongols and their alleged Alawite allies. In 1305, Ibn Taymiyyah took part in a second military offensive against the Alawites and the Isma-ili in the Kasrawan region of the Lebanese mountains, where they were defeated. I stop at this point today. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep exploring the world's incredible stories. Soon we will publish Part 4. Thank you for watching.